Hello everybody, welcome back to some Deadlock. Venator's out. I know it's probably Venator, but Venator's funnier. Both are probably funnier. They seem cool, based on the visuals I have seen. Priest with a bunch of guns, Van Helsing look-alike, you know. Their punch seems pretty cool, considering they're like pulling out a stake and stabbing with it. That's pretty neat. Pretty cool at running animations. The gun seems pretty solid so far. Decent rate of fire, decent starting mag. Are its starting statistics correct? It looks like it. 8 bullets, 7.94 per sec, 3 ammo, 2.8 reload time. Pretty dang high velocity. Where's the guy? I mean, that's pretty high bullet velocity for Deadlock. So let's hop into reading all the abilities and see what all of them do. Alright, first ability, what's up? Consecrating Grenade. Oh, okay. Well, we'll just go all in. What is this pose in the menu? Sorry, distracted it. Anyways, fire grenade that bounces before exploding, dealing weapon damage. Pretty good. Setting enemies on fire. Base 10 damage per second. Healing reduction. Burning target deals pure damage to enemies. Is that a new damage type, or is that a damage type that doesn't ever get reduced by stuff? Pretty cool if it is the type of thing that doesn't get reduced by reduction. That makes this grenade a lot more powerful. 3.5 second duration, 4.5 meter radius, pretty small. -5 second cooldown, plus radius and burn radius. And healing reduction, and allows charges. So it does bounce around. Let's put on no cooldown so I can just use it a bunch. So it does bounce, but it's a pretty quick thing. There's going to be a pretty high skill level to bounce shotting with this thing. Examples. Being able to bounce this thing around corners and then make sure that they start burning is going to be pretty good. Direct impacts, causing all of the effects as well. Pretty solid. But I mean, example. Oh, so it's just after it bounces. Because, alright, so shoot it straight up and let's find out. Okay, so it does just have a time where it goes off. Makes sense. I'm sure it says that somewhere in the description, but, you know. Testing. I wonder if it procs weapon effect since it does weapon damage, right? So would it proc like silencer? Yes. It would proc silencer. Alright, that's actually pretty cool. I kind of figured since it said it did weapon damage, it would proc weapon effects. So that means that if you're running gun build with them, stuff like armor piercing and lucky shot could potentially trigger as well. Okay, would headshot stuff work then? Does it headshot? Doesn't look like it headshots. I'd assume it wouldn't either. But I will say, this gaining charges and this also having charges makes it so that this character is probably going to be a very big user of rapid recharge. Having two separate abilities that work with rapid recharge means that they're a big contender for popping that onto basically every build, even if you're not a true, like, purple buyer. Alright, let's look at the next one. Gut shot. Fire a blast with your shotgun, dealing weapon damage and pushing enemies back. Enemies near a wall receive a stun and take bonus weapon damage. Alright, so they're definitely a brawler. Definitely get in there and fight it out. So, gain damage, plus a minus ability cooldown, and plus ability range. And on wall stun, your next heavy melee is blessed. What does that even mean? Alright, let's get you near a wall, bud. Okay, so the knockback's not that big. How much does this heavy melee normally do? Does the 125 hit him into a wall? It hits an extra 100 damage? That's pretty nice. So you might also end up building into, say, crushing fists, just for funsies, because that into that's a pretty solid chunk of damage. It's quite expensive, and you might just grab only melee charge early on for, like, the melee damage and bullet resist and melee distance. But that's pretty solid. Very much getting, like, an Abrams Billy vibe. Very much a brawler, want to get in there, do lots of stuff. Because you can shoot him into the wall, then do that, and then kind of go to town and start shooting him. Very cool stuff so far. Very basic kit, though, compared to a lot of the other characters we've gotten recently, where, like, the abilities just do the thing. The grenade's a little more complex, but still pretty cool. It does look like the grenade's scaling off of your level. So if I, like, max level it out here. Yeah, now it's ticking for 66 a tick there. I know there's lots of numbers in the way. Pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. But that means I would also scale off your weapon damage, though, so you grab, like, just... Oh, no, just the damage scales off the weapon damage, and the damage on hit doesn't do much. Interesting. Really interesting stuff that we're finding out here. Goodness gracious. All right, third ability, Hex-Lined Snap Trap. God, that's a mouthful. Kick a trap that arms after a brief delay. The trap springs on the first enemy it touches, dealing spirit damage, applying Immobilize, and revealing enemies for a duration afterwards. The reveal is interesting, but they have a 30-second lifetime? So minus cooldown plus duration. You deal damage against targets? I'm going to assume that's, like, targets that are immobilized. But what happens if we put on, like, superior duration? That gives it a 38-second lifetime. Does that also 4.8 as opposed to 3.5? That's cool. So you just kick it on the ground and then so that's one of those things where if you snag someone with it, you can easily smack them into a wall and then just go have a good time. So you probably want some type of like ability range then, right? Are there any good? I mean, Echo Shard would be funny. Spirit Burn would also be funny. Vortex Web could be. But yeah, you might just grab Greater Expansion as well because of the extra ability range on it to make these bigger. How big is the thing? It probably says on the item description. Hang on. Reading is hard. It's 2 meters. That's pretty small. However, I'm going to assume... Oh, it bounces off of... Well, that shows exactly how big it is, but it also bounces off of architecture.
I'm ready for the wicked.
See, it like bounces off this little ledge here. So I'm assuming if you jump and kick it, yeah, all right, this is going to be a weapon with some learning curves. However, walls like this, for example, if you just like kick it into the corner and then place it on the other side, and then you can dash out of here to get away and someone will walk into it and get caught. Very interesting stuff. My vibe of them being Van Helsing now feels very on point. All right, let's take a look at Venator's last ability. Full disclosure, this is now my second time recording this because my last take went both horribly wrong. And I realized I misunderstood some stuff, so we're going to redo this because I don't want to spread misinformation. Load your crossbow with 3 stakes, dealing massively increased weapon damage. The final stake is Blessed, dealing bonus pure damage and executing low health enemies. And then the upgrades are, while it's active, you gain move speed, minus cooldown and plus bonus damage. And then the final upgrade, which is insanely strong, meaning that all stakes are Blessed. That means that all of them get max bonus damage, which adds up real fast. Hitting for, what is that? Sorry, the boon received is very in the way. I know. Hang on. What was that? 600 plus another 400 in the headshot, which is absolutely insane. Which I think just really makes his ultimate a very powerful team fighting ability, but also, if nothing else, just a very powerful run after people and try and kill them ability. Tiny time to talk about how the abilities work and how I think there are some items that are going to be insanely good for Venator. Something that I missed in my first little look through these items, and you may hear me talk about in other portions of this video, before my brain clicked and realized how strong these abilities are. Only one of his abilities scales off spirit damage, and it's just the Snap Trap. Meaning that if you're buying anything from the Spirit tab, the only thing it's buffing is the Snap Trap, meaning that this character is going to mostly be buying weapon damage because, well, all of his abilities proc weapon damage, which is insanely strong. Because they're doing weapon damage, that means that they should be able to trigger stuff like some very important items like toxic bullets, as you can see by the way that all of these things are in fact triggering those abilities. Actually, interestingly enough, the ultimate wasn't triggering toxic bullets. However, as you can see, the shotgun does, and the grenade does as well. Which is very, very strong that they trigger on-hit bullet effects. I do find it funny that the crossbow here does not. Oh no, it does. It's just very, very small and very, very slow. Apologies. When the amount you're gaining for toxic bullets is so slow because of how fast fire the weapon is, it's hard to tell. But as a result of these abilities all getting triggered by various different on-hit effects, that means that items like Escalating Resilience and Burst Fire are probably very strong. Because that means if you hit a grenade, you'll proc Burst Fire. Because of just how it works. If you hit the shotgun, you'll probably proc Burst Fire. Which I'll even show off in a second. See, let's wait a second. See, the buff's gone. Hit shotgun. Oh, it doesn't proc? That's wild. The more you know. Normal rate of fire, hits shotgun. Normal rate of fire, hits with bullets, burst fire, procs. That's very, very interesting. I guess burst fire does say one of your bullets. However, a lot of the rest of the things I'm saying are correct. Stuff like Tesla bullets will probably proc, as well as this will probably proc, but as you can see, it's just a chance. But items like Tesla bullets aren't very good on this type of character anyways, because you're not running into the ability to scale the shock damage on it, so it doesn't look as good. Capacitor itself probably still be a good item because it's a really easy silence effect on a pretty short cooldown, for all things considered, as well as minusing move speed, which is very strong. But I think this guy's going to be very strong with a very weapon-heavy build. You're going to be able to proc lots of gun effects by just hitting your abilities on people, which should make just procking them easier. Stuff like, well, Capacitor is a great example. Lucky Shot has the potential to proc on your crossbow. You know, the same 25% proc chance as everything else, but still, you can potentially just one-shot someone if you get lucky enough. Stuff like Silencer also does proc off other abilities, as you can see, by the fact that it gains a little bit. Meaning that you can throw a thing, shoot a guy, and then keep shooting, and then all of a sudden they are silenced. It's a little slower than other characters because of the fact that he has a very high rate of fire weapon, so the build-up is a little slower. But it still does work. I feel like this guy's got crazy potential. I feel like there's also going to be lots of interesting room to build around Rapid Recharge, and then potentially Mercurial Magnum. I don't know if it'll be the greatest thing in the world because you're only building into 2 items here. You're only getting up to 9.6k. However, it would still proc and still really up your weapon damage by adding, as you can see, all these 13s and 14s to how you left click on people. I just think this character is going to be crazy fun and crazy good. I think that they're still going to be super brawly and still want to get in there and fight people on the regular, but I think they are going to be a little less utility than my first impressions were upon reading the kit, and a lot more just gun focused. Regardless, thanks for watching. I hope you had a fun time watching. I hope you learned something, and I hope to catch you in the next one.